Jeremy Bentham's An Introduction to the Principles of Morals and Legislation. Two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure, govern the world. These two masters determine what we do or do not do. Pains and pleasures have four sources/sanctions that they come from: physical, political, moral, and religious. The act that provides the greatest amount of pleasure at the greatest number while preventing the most pain are morally permissible. The principle of utility is required to determine the amount of pleasure or pain that is generated from an act or behavior. By the principle, or disapproves of every action whatsoever, according to the tendency which it appears to have to augment or diminish the happiness of the party whose interest is in question, or, what is the same thing, in other words, to promote or to oppose that happiness. The principle of utility is composed of 7 variables of measurement: intensity, duration, certainty/uncertainty, propinquity/remoteness, validity, purity, and extent. Intensity is a measure of degree or extent concerning depth. Duration is a measure of temporal continuance. How long does it last? Certainty is a measurement of confidence/probability for or against a predicted event. Propinquity/remoteness is a measure of the immediacy of the event. How quick does it happen? Fecundity is the measurement of the chance it has of being followed by a sensation of the same kind. That is, pleasure, if it be pleasure; pain, if it be pain. Purity is the measure of the chance it has of not being followed by a sensation of the opposite kind. That is, pain, if it be pleasure; pleasure, if it be pain. Extent is the measurement of the number of persons who it extends or who is affected. Introducing your issue. Background. Before the recent election of 2016, marijuana in California was illegal for recreational use. However, the recent election has passed Prop 64, which legalizes marijuana for recreational use. The issue we are analyzing is whether it is morally impermissible or morally permissible to legalize marijuana for recreational use. Legalization, meaning to give legal validity or sanction to use said item. Marijuana is the dried leaves and flowering tops of Episcopalian hemp plants that yields THC and are smoked in cigarettes for their intoxicating effect, or simplified, a drug. Recreational drugs is chemical substance taken for enjoyment or leisure purposes rather than for medical reasons. Morally permissible, meaning that the moral rules agreed with it. It is morally impermissible to legalize recreational marijuana in California. The legalization of marijuana in California will affect the following: the user of recreational marijuana, user, the person using the drug marijuana; the family/friends of the user, i.e. mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, etc.; the employer or future employers of the user; the school system in California; the communities in California; the police department, the fire department, and the economy. The effects on the person using marijuana. Intensity. The marijuana smoke contains toxic gas and particles that can damage the lungs. In addition, can cause inflammation in the airways, increase its air resistance, hyperinflation in the lungs, and can reduce the respiratory system's immune response. Inflammation, pain, and swelling can be accompanied by redness. Hyperinflation, an extent version of excess inflation. Immune response, a body's response to something invading the body. These are effects of marijuana smoking cause intense negative effects to the user's health. Duration. The drug may reduce thinking, memory, and learning functions, and affect how the brain builds connections between the areas necessary for these functions. Marijuana effects on these abilities may last a long time or even be permanent. Certainty/uncertainty. Research suggests that 30% of users may develop some degree of problem use, which can lead to dependence and in severe cases take form of addiction. Addiction. One person cannot stop using marijuana even though it interferes with his or her daily life. Propinquity/remoteness. The use of marijuana itself takes effect in 30 minutes to an hour after using the drug. 10% of marijuana smokers become addicted to this drug. Fecundity. Marijuana can cause the sensation of being high. This can be in a form of laughing constantly at common things/objects, sexual arousal, and sleepiness. The user uses marijuana as a pleasure, and it produces pleasure. Purity. After using marijuana, users feel an effect of cotton mouth, dizziness, food cravings, and short-term memory issues. Cotton mouth, meaning that users experience an uncomfortable feeling from lack of saliva production. Dizziness, the feeling like your body is about to fall or the sensation you are falling. Food cravings. Many users will experience a sudden increase in appetite, often leading them to raid their fridge. Short-term memory issues, loss of memory or your memory has holes in it. User tends to believe that the use of marijuana will have a pleasurable outcome. However, these side effects express pain rather than pleasure. Extent. The extent of the high can last less than a day. However, if the user becomes addicted or dependent on marijuana, the side effects of addiction can last their whole lives. Given the intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, purity, and the extent of the user use of marijuana, the conclusion is this act causes more pain than pleasure. If it brings more pain than pleasure, then it should be illegal. The effects on family/friend of the user. Intensity. Marijuana usage can have negative effects financially, mentally, and physically on family and friends. Financially, the money spent on the drug marijuana could in fact be used elsewhere, like for bills and groceries. However, most users of marijuana become addicted, and this means they will most likely use the money meant for bills on the drug. This can cause intense financial strain. Mentally, if someone has smoked a significant amount of marijuana, they may fall asleep or become detached from their surroundings easily. They can miss out on family time with their focus not being completely on the current situation. Physically, the after effects of using marijuana can cause serious health issues. With health issues, the user may be restricted on what he or she is able to do. This can cause the user to be less involved. The loss of family involvement affects relationships, which are important to development. Duration. Given the effects of the intensity and the effects on relationships can continue to happen as long as the user is using, or even long after the user has stopped. This is dependent on the individual users/family and friends and the user itself. Certainty/uncertainty. 10% of marijuana smokers become addicted to this drug. If 10% of users become addicts while the drug is illegal, then the number will expected to rise after legalization of marijuana. With more addicts, the certainty of this affecting family/friends arises as well. Propinquity/remoteness. The time in which family/friends is affected by the user is different depending on the individual user. If the user is a first-time user, the effects are most likely not to be immediate. Fecundity. The legalization of marijuana will prevent more users from being convicted of a felony. This becomes a pleasure because that means the less users being taken away from their family and friends. Purity. However, contrary to fecundity, having family members and friends not in jail and addicted can have negative impacts. See intensity for impacts. Extent. The distance created by the user and marijuana have a lifetime negative impacts on family and friends. Given the intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, and purity, and the extent of the use of marijuana, the conclusion is that this act causes more pain than pleasure. If it brings more pain than pleasure, then it should be illegal. The effects of the employer and future employers of the user. Intensity. Given the effects of marijuana on a user, the health issues could affect their employment. If the user becomes unable to work due to marijuana usage, then our workforce numbers will go down. What if a user goes to work after using? Then if anything happens while the user is under the influence, the employer would be liable. Duration. If marijuana is legal, then employers will have to include the risk of marijuana in the workplace as long as marijuana continues to be legal. Employers will have to either adjust their drug testing or make their employees aware that use of this drug, regardless if it's illegal, will cost them their job. Certainty/uncertainty. Marijuana's legalization will be treated as if it is similar to alcohol. For the certainty, we will compare the statistics found from alcohol as if it will mirror the outcome of marijuana. This is due to the fact that that the legal wording of the law for alcohol is similar to marijuana. A third of employees admit to have been to work with a hangover. 15% reported having been drunk at work. 1 in 10 reported hangovers at work once a month. 1 in 20 once a week. Work problems resulting from hangovers or being drunk at work include difficulties concentrating, reduced productivity, tiredness, and mistakes. The majority of employers, 77%, interviewed identified alcohol as a major threat to employee well-being and a factor encouraging sickness abuse. Propinquity/remoteness. The immediateness of marijuana affecting the workplace is dependent on the individual user. Fecundity. If an employer decides to adjust their drug testing requirements for marijuana, then the pleasure of marijuana usage will produce the pleasure of being able to keep your job. Purity. Contrary to fecundity, if the employer decides not to adjust their drug testing requirements, then any pleasure from the usage of marijuana will have an after effect of pain of losing your job. Extent. These effects will extend outward not only to the employer, but also their families, the company's workers if the company has a negative impact, and in the industry the company works in. Given the extent, duration, certainty, propinquity, purity, and the extent of the use of marijuana, the conclusion is that this act causes more pain than pleasure. If it brings more pain than pleasure, then it should be illegal. The school system in California. Intensity. A startling 5% of junior high, generally 12 to 15 years old, 11% of high schools, generally 16 to 18 years old, and 8% of college students, generally 18 to 22-year-old, have been reported using marijuana. In 2013, Monitoring the Future survey of high school students, 6.5% of students in grade 12 reported daily or nearly daily marijuana use, and this figure probably represents an underestimate of using, since young people who have dropped out of high school may have participated in high rates of frequent marijuana use. Duration. California students in the school system are already using marijuana, despite it being illegal. However, legalization of legal drugs are easier to obtain than illegal drugs. Marijuana legalization will increase the number of students able to get this drug, and the effects of marijuana will increase in affecting California's youth. Certainty/uncertainty. Given the statistics listed in intensity, this is the certainty that marijuana will affect the schools. However, this is the number before marijuana was legalized, so we expect it to be increased, which means our certainty of this negatively affecting our schools increases. Propinquity/remoteness. Considering that marijuana is already negatively affecting our youth, the effects of it being legal will immediately affect our youth. Fecundity. In consideration for children who have epilepsy, marijuana usage is a pleasure because it alleviates the pain of seizures, so the pain of the drug is accompanied by the pain of not having to feel pain of epilepsy. Purity. The pleasure of using marijuana is accompanied by the side effects listed in the user's intensity. 19A or 28. Extent. The extent of marijuana affecting the youth is that not only is the youth affected, but also the youth's family, school, classmates, community, and education system. Given the intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, purity, and extent of the use of marijuana, the conclusion is that this act causes more pain than pleasure. If it brings more pain than pleasure, then it should be illegal. The police/fire and other community support departments. Intensity. Federal figures on drug arrest and drug use over the past 3 decades tell the story. Drug possession arrests skyrocketed from fewer than 200 arrests for every 100,000 people in 1979 to more than 500 in the mid-2000s. Marijuana legalization will make it so these types of arrests do not have to occur. Marijuana legalization makes the usage not a crime, so services like this do not have to occur. However, these services will be needed to help navigate accidents caused from users from using marijuana. For example, users driving under the influence of marijuana. In addition, any other random accidents that occur due to the effects of marijuana. The fact that these services are not needed to arrest users for the use of marijuana, they will be needed to assist in the accidents that will be caused from marijuana. Duration. The effect of these services not being needed to occur because marijuana is legal will continue to not be needed as long as the law of legalization of marijuana is in place. However, as stated above, they will continue to be needed to assist in accidents. This will be continued as long as the law is in place. certainty / uncertainty. Marijuana's legalization will be treated as if it is similar to alcohol. For certainty, we will compare the statistics found from alcohol as if it mirrors the outcome of marijuana. This is due to the fact that the legal wording of the law for alcohol is similar to the legal wording for marijuana. In 2011, there were 19,204 convictions for alcohol or drug-involved reckless driving, which represents 7.9%. These services are certainly needed for alcohol, therefore, they are similarly needed for marijuana. Propinquity / remoteness. The services in question are already needed and used to assist in the rest of users that are using marijuana. Similarly, they will be needed immediately for any accidents that occur. Fecundity. Marijuana legalization user has the pleasure of using marijuana with the pleasure of not getting arrested by these services. Purity. The pleasure of using marijuana will be accompanied by the accidents that may occur in which these services are needed. Extent. The legalization of marijuana will affect these services and by extent the professions of these services. Given the intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, purity, and the extent of the use of marijuana, the conclusion is that these acts cause more pain than pleasure. If it brings more pain than pleasure, then it should be illegal. Communities in California. The communities in California are very similar to the user's family / friends, workplace, and youth affected. Intensity. The community is a larger scale of the individual things we talked about. Consider the intensity for the following listed: users' use, family / friends, youth, and police and fire. Duration. The community is a larger scale of the individual things we talked about. Consider the duration for the following listed: users' use, family / friends, youth, and police and fire. Certainty / uncertainty. The community is a larger scale of the individual things we talked about. Consider the certainty of their following: users' use, family / friends, youth, police, and fire. Propinquity and remoteness. The community is a larger scale of the following things we talked about. Consider the propinquity for the following uses: users' use, family / friends, youth, police, and fire. Fecundity. The community is a larger scale of the things we talked about. Consider the fecundity for the following listed: users' use, family / friends, youth, police, and fire. Purity. The community is a larger scale of the individual things we talked about. Consider the purity for the following things: users' use, family / friends, youth, police, and fire. Extent. The community is a bigger scale of the individual things we talked about. Consider the extent for the following things: users' use, family / friends, youth, police, and fire. Given the intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, purity, and extent of the use of marijuana, the conclusion is this act causes more pain than pleasure. If it brings more pain than pleasure, then it should be illegal. The economy. For this variable, we will look at Colorado's economy after legalization of marijuana. This is because California's economy should produce similar effects. Intensity. Colorado is ranked as one of the fastest growing economies. According to the Department of Revenue, 16,000 people were licensed to work in the marijuana industry as of December 31st, 2014. Duration. The economy is an ever-fluctuating system. Marijuana in Colorado is still affecting the economy positively. However, we cannot determine how long this will last. Certainty / uncertainty. Legalization of marijuana will open a legal market for the selling of marijuana. This will be a pleasure because it means more jobs and money in the economy. Propinquity / remoteness. The effect of marijuana being legal will not be immediate in the economy. It will take time to set the laws in place, certify licenses, set up permits, open stores, and grow the crops. Fecundity. The pleasure of being able to use marijuana will be accompanied by the pleasure of the economy getting a boost. Purity. The loss of the black market production, the pain, will accompany by the pleasure of being able to use marijuana. If you ask any regular smoker if they would be willing to pay more for legal weed, I guarantee that 100% of them would say yes, because with legalization comes certain benefits like immunity from prosecution, convenience, safer purchasing environments, and a greater variety of product. If smokers are willing to pay more for legal marijuana, the black market for it will decline and lose money. If the economy receives a boost from legalization of marijuana, then more jobs in the market will be available. This means that more people will work and have money, which in turn will help feed their families. Given the intensity, duration, certainty, remoteness, fecundity, and the extent of the legalization of marijuana, the conclusion is that this act causes more pleasure than pain. If it brings more pleasure than pain, then it should be legal. Conclusion. The act that provides the greatest amount of pleasure at the greatest number while preventing the most pain are morally permissible. Given the above analysis, I will list the pains and pleasures of legalization of marijuana. Pains. The user of recreational marijuana, the family/friends of the user, i.e. mom, dad, sister, brother, and aunt, the employer and future employer of the user, the school systems of California, youth, the communities in California, the police department, the fire department, pleasures, the economy. Given that there are more pain than pleasure, legalization of marijuana is morally impermissible.